All right, so I'd like to show to you how I read an academic article. Assume that you selected this article because you're interested in it and you just kind of want to get an idea of the article. I read those type of papers differently than if I want to figure out something else, such as how did they measure things. But assuming I just want to read this paper efficiently, what I do is I read the title, I read the abstract, and the keywords, and I usually also read the introduction. The introduction usually has most of the information of the paper and kind of gives you a good context. They will say, usually all the way in the beginning, what their general hypothesis is and their general finding. So, for example, they say here in the present article, we argue that busyness and overwork rather than a leisurely lifestyle have become a status symbol. Okay. They also then say in the next abstract, in the next paragraph here, that they explain this, and they say that here we uncover an alternative kind of conspicuous consumption that operates by shifting the focus from preciousness and scarcity of goods to the preciousness of scarcity of individuals, blah, 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 blah. So I try to kind of figure out the main message, and so I usually do that by just reading the introduction. And then I first look at all of the headings. I look at all of the different graphs. And once I've kind of gotten a good idea of what this paper is about by just looking at the graphs, I start reading in more detail. I start by just reading the first few sentences of each paragraph. And just kind of skimming, getting an idea. Again, reading the headings, reading the first few sentences. And I focus really on what are the hypotheses. Okay, so for example, here they hypothesize that busyness at work and lack of leisure time can lead to inferences of higher perceived status as compared to less busyness at work and abundance of leisure time. Blah, blah, blah. If people don't specify exactly their hypotheses, I can also use Google, I can use the find function. I can be like, oh, what's the hypothesis? Aha. Or hypotheses. So I kind of use the function here and try to find this, yeah? Or predict. And I kind of look at these sentences specifically before I read anything in more detail. Oh, what am I doing now? Okay. So I try to figure out what is the hypothesis, and then I go to the designs. And a really good way to just get an idea of the findings of papers and the studies is to not even really look at the designs too much in detail, and to just look at the discussion section of a different study. That might be enough to actually get an idea of the paper and of the finding of the study. I don't know. Here, for example, I know that the results of study 1A and B demonstrate that individuals posting Facebook updates or writing letters about their overworked lifestyle are perceived as higher in status than individuals whose updates reveal more leisurely lifestyles. So from this discussion section, without even reading the actual methodology, I already know that they looked at individuals posting on Facebook, they might have updated things, they measured status and lifestyles and so on. So I actually, back in the days, I used to only read the discussion sections. And now I'm starting to read a bit more, but it might help to just get an idea by looking at the discussion sections here, not even at the designs. And I often also read the discussion, and specifically the first part of a discussion, because that's usually another summary of the paper. Sometimes, here the general discussion. So here it seems like they do the same thing again. So they say here, while research on conspicuous consumption has typically analyzed how people spend money on products that signal status, in this research we investigate conspicuous consumption in relation to time. We demonstrate and blah, blah, blah. And often papers will actually have like a little section on what they did in each of the separate studies. And with that, I kind of get an idea of what they did without having to read everything. So if you just want to kind of quickly read something for class or for me, it's enough to kind of read the first section of a discussion, the introduction, and the discussions of papers. discussions of the methods. In a different scenario, you might actually want to read a paper, though, to get an idea of how to design an experiment. And when you do that, you will want to look at the specific studies themselves and focus your reading time on everything that I just didn't explain, but specifically delve into the methods. And I'll show you how to do that in a different video.